Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Authors Up, the favorite place to be on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. You have joined us here on ALH Broadcasting, and we're very, very glad to have you with us this evening. We have an exciting book, we have an exciting author, and we are looking forward to a great conversation tonight. But first, I want to welcome our co-host and have them greet you this evening. There is Miss Ruth Griffin and Miss Victoria E. Henderson. Hey, ladies, how are you tonight?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Doing
Still
absolutely
battling
good.
a little cough, but hey, I'm here tonight and I'm glad to be here.
Well, you look beautiful as you
Well,
do
thank you
too,
so
Ruth.
Thank you.
Thank
Both
you
of
so
you are
much, Queen
beautiful.
Victoria.
Glad to be here. I tell
You
you.
have a greeting tonight?
Hello.
That's hello.
That was it.
That was it. Hello. You both are looking beautiful tonight.
Yes,
Beautiful.
yes. We're happy to be here and we're happy to have our audience.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And first one in is Miss Leah Forney. Leah,
Leah.
good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of ALH tonight. We're always glad to have you in the house and have you with us. And we have, I am so excited about our guests. Whenever we have a first time author on, it is always very, very exciting. But this is especially so. And I just can't wait for us to share about it. But first, we're going to start with our weekend review. We always give you our weekend review and tell you what's going on and what is happening with us. And I think I'm first out the block tonight. And I had a good week last week.
Good.
I took several mental vacations in my mind.
I need to
I
start
love it.
taking those. I need
Went
to start
away
taking those.
in my mind, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself.
Did you go anywhere warm?
Say what?
Did you go anywhere warm?
Oh, absolutely. I am not one of these crazy snow people.
No. Okay,
I love the snow in pictures. I think pictures are wonderful.
I have a friend who is in the process of moving to Idaho, where she's from North Carolina to Idaho.
Okay.
She sent us pictures of her trip. She's in, I want to say, Wyoming at the moment, and all you could see was white and a little road slush. She said it was like -2 when she got up that morning. I was like,
Oh, no.
I'm good.
No. When I first moved here, I moved here in November. I didn't put on a coat, I think, until February.
Why are you
And
making that face, Victoria?
I could not have been happier. I was I was elated.
Wait a minute. You said -2.
Yeah, okay, she was still stuck on -2.
Because wait a minute. And you said she was traveling. Was she on a
Yeah, she's
bobsled?
traveling. No,
Was she on a bobsled? Because how do we travel in -2 degrees? Because that's freezing, below freezing.
Low freezing.
Yeah.
That means that the ground is frozen. Everything else is frozen. That's precipitate. So, was she on a bobsled with a team? Because
You've been in North Carolina too long. You know people live in those conditions.
A lot of people, and it just
New
doesn't
York.
bother them, at all. And
No.
we close down and shut down and do any manner of
threat,
things.
the threat of inclement weather.
and I'm going to continue to do so.
That's it. I
My,
remember
my vehicle does not have skates.
when I first moved here, the newscaster would come. I will never forget it. He was on the air like this. And when the snow starts, it's going to start coming from here. What are we doing?
But okay.
I was definitely someplace warm.
That's it.
Good.
Mental vacations, and there was just a soft breeze, and the waves were just, they weren't crashing; they were creeping against the shore, and it was
And a
absolutely
drink with an umbrella.
wonderful. It was
Okay. A
wonderful.
drink
So
with an
I did
umbrella
that,
in
and then I came to myself and got some work done, which
Okay.
which I needed to do. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the new year. Looking forward to doing some new things and some things with family and just kind of switching some things around. And he's already started. I'm really focusing on my books this year. I'm
Good.
giving that some more focus and some more attention, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited
Good.
about
And you
doing
Good.
should be.
that.
Good.
So it was really a good week. It was really a good week. Still battling a little throat stuff, but I am so glad it's not like it was. I know, Ruth, when you had this little buggy thing, it took a while to get rid of
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, it
So
does. It does.
Vitamin C. Get vitamin C. Boost your immune system.
okay, that I can do. I can do that, and then I'm gonna
Hmm.
go back under the umbrella and
Yes. Yeah.
see what
Well, I mean,
my vacation will bring.
I was gonna say, wash those pills down with your little umbrella drink. That'll help with this cold.
Get the little umbrellas, right?
Yes.
Good evening to you, Laurie. Thank you for joining us tonight. Glad to have you in the house with us. Ruth, how was your week last week?
It was fine. I didn't go on mental vacations. I was too busy party planning from another state. So my daughter, we're having her baby shower next month, and it somehow went from we have enough time to oh crap, it's going to be here probably like next week. So
Right.
and then we changed the location a couple weeks ago, but you can't go look at a location if you're in another state. So
Right.
either she was doing it or I was sending her pictures and sending her links and going, okay, well, why don't we just look at community centers? But apparently Maryland has a different definition of what a community center is, because she
Oh,
would go
okay.
to a venue and they'd be like, yeah, we want $700 for this. And I'm like, that's not a community
Ooh.
center. So
Right. Right. Right.
we finally secured a venue. So I'm happy
Good.
about that. Now we just do the smaller details, and I'll be happy when it's done, to be honest.
I
So,
I
understand.
just want the baby to get here.
well, yeah, that's the most important thing I feel. So,
that's that's it. Good evening, Samuel. Thank you for joining us
mhm,
tonight. Thank you for being here.
yeah. So, yeah, that was my week. I hope next week to have less stress. I'm gonna go find my own little mental vacation and go get some drinks.
They're wonderful, I tell you.
I do, I do. Yep,
And you get to
yep.
stay as long as you want.
How about that? Well, my week was let's see. It was cold.
Okay.
Yes,
It was
that
cold.
counts.
Oh, I think then we start the week with little weather. Yeah, we started the week with a little weather
Mhm.
situation going on here in the Carolinas, but we had delayed. I was so glad. I was just so grateful. Then I did my first show of the year on Living Life Victoriously. That went well, and yeah, and then it was cold, and then I was reading the book for this week, and so I was um, delightfully just I was not
Distracted.
able to think about the cold anymore, but I got engrossed in the book. So
You were delightfully distracted.
distracted. That's the
Just,
word.
oh,
Really distracted. So
very good.
yes,
Very
yes. So it was,
delightful.
Yeah, I
no.
think I think that could go for all of us. Delightfully
Yeah,
Yes,
distracted.
yes.
yeah,
So,
definitely. I like that.
So, and
mhm,
I think we should not prolong it anymore because like I said, the week was fine. Well, I'm also moving, so I was engrossed in packing so much so I packed
mhm,
away some of my gear for the show. But okay, it is what it is. But we do have a wonderful author with us tonight, and let me tell you a little bit about her. Isabel Reddy began her career in clinical research as a science writer. She has been a guest columnist for numerous newspapers and has an MFA in creative writing from Goddard College. Miss Reddy lives in North Carolina with her husband and German Shepherd Mac. That You Remember is her first novel. Well, after the short break, you will get to meet our author of the evening and we will get to talk to her about her delightfully distracting book, That You Remember. We'll be right back.
All right, we're back.
Yay,
Good evening,
welcome,
Isabel.
welcome.
Good
Welcome.
evening. Good evening. Glad to be here. Thank
Well,
you.
we are happy to have you. Glad you could join us tonight. So, we'll get started the way we always do. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Okay. I was just thinking about spoiler alert, so
Yes.
I don't want to give too much away. Okay, so it's a novel about the coal industry in the 1970s, and at that time the unions were strong. There was a lot of animosity between union members and coal operators. It's a little different now. And the environmental laws were just coming into play. And so a lot of times these mines were pretty poorly managed
Mm.
and were egregiously out of compliance with laws that had been coming into effect, the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, et cetera. So my novel depicts a disaster that did happen in West Virginia in the southwestern corner, Buffalo Creek. But I placed so the disaster was a coal impoundment that breached, and that was where they washed the coal and just couldn't put the slurry water in the streams anymore. So they just built these big lagoons with this black slurry, and this impoundment breached and wiped out a 10-mile hollow of little communities that lived all along,
Wow.
killed 125, mostly women and children, some elderly. It was a sort of a coal disaster that didn't really kill miners. It killed innocent people living in the community. So I depict that from both sides of the story, from the coal executive in New York City and from locals in the coal hollow in Appalachia.
Wow. So, this was your first book. What made you interested in choosing the coal mining as the backdrop for your first novel?
This is a really good question. So this book evolved because I've also been a teacher for 30 years. And when I taught ninth grade in Durham Public Schools, one of the required reading was Kai Erickson's, he was a sociologist, wrote a book called Everything in Its Path. And in that, my students were reading about this Buffalo Creek disaster. We were studying it and doing dioramas and building, samples of this type of thing. And in reading about that, I saw Pittston Coal was the owner of the mine and they were held responsible in court of law. And my father had been a past president of Pittston Coal. Well, that was like a little seed, but I wasn't writing yet. And lo and behold, after my father and my stepmother had passed, unbeknownst to me, a giant box arrived on my doorstep of all my father's desk diaries.
Mm-hmm.
So the book came to me in a way, because I started it and then it grew and everything. And so I have those I toggle two time periods. 2019 was a person kind of like me, whose father was a coal executive, but she didn't know a tipple from an apple. And then it flashes back to 1970, and she's trying to discover whether her father had an affair. And then you flash back to 1970.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I think that is usually I don't have a problem with books, fictional books going between 2 or 3 points of views or timelines, but I feel like you went back and forth masterfully. You would just drop seeds enough to keep you want to go and find out oh, they got married. But wait, they got married in the future. So I have to keep reading to find out, or such and such passed away, or, whatever it was, you dropped enough seeds to keep me interested, keep me going. So I thought that was really well done how you wrote that.
Thank you.
Um, you're welcome. I have to ask because and I mentioned this earlier. My stepdad's family were from Pennsylvania, the western side of the state, and they were a mining family. So it kind of brought back memories, brought back, just remembering my uncles and, family members who did work in the mines way back when. So it was, it was interesting, it was for me, I won't say nostalgic, but you brought back those memories. And, obviously there was a lot of research that went into this. This wasn't just, oh, let me sit down and write it because the book came to me and, I read a story in class. So how long was this book with you?
10 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a ton of research. And I literally knew nothing really about the coal industry.
Mhm.
My father did, the only thing he talked about was, turn off the lights. And that was if they weren't buying his coal, he wanted to leave the lights on. If they were buying his coal, he wanted to turn the lights off. I don't know. But I really knew nothing about it. So it was a ton of research, a lot of legwork, a lot of time on the road and traveling to places with no cell signal, traveling on roads that had a drop off and a sheer wall and giant coal trucks coming that just made me look like and miles where there were no mailboxes. So yeah, and then going into coal mines, I went into 2 coal mines, which is really hard for me because I'm a little bit claustrophobic, but I did it.
Wow.
Because and that's how I could write Pete, is I had this amateur, this rookie coal miner, but I knew exactly how he felt because I
Mhm.
felt that way. Coal mine,
Yeah, no, and
lots
there
of
was,
books, I read lots of books, periodicals, newspapers, and the interviews, talking to survivors, talking to people who lived in those regions, going to their homes. I went to church with them. I went to the memorial events, really got to know them. Yeah.
wow, wow.
It's amazing. That is
It is. It is. And, even like when you mentioned Pete, I know that when we were talking, it felt, when Pete was learning, we were learning too.
Yeah.
So I thought that was well done. But,
Yes.
um, so tell us a little bit about you because you went from writing science papers, to teaching class, MFA in creative writing. So have you always wanted to write one way or another?
I've actually always written. When I think about it, starting I think 12 or 13, I started journaling. I have stacks and stacks of journals, and then I began some nonfiction, some essays in various newspapers, small, and then yeah, I was also a teacher, but I was also in clinical research, and I was a scientific writer, which is kind of boring stuff, but someone has to do it. But I will say that my segue into fiction was a giant leap.
Okay.
Wow.
Except that I've always written and I've loved writing, and maybe
Mhm.
some courses in the undergrad was fiction, but yeah, I got this story in my heart, and it was burning in my heart, and I had to write it.
Wow.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
So the characters then, how was it coming up with them? How was are they based on anyone in particular, or did you do like compile some of the characters together? Are they originally or your creation or?
Um, well, when I said this book was in my heart,
Mhm.
when I sort of launched, when I decided to try to write this story, to depict this disaster, the Buffalo Creek disaster, which was in West Virginia, but I set it in Kentucky, and I can tell you why later. I did some Google research, obviously, and you look, and an organization called Apple Shop, Mimi Pickering out of Kentucky, did a documentary, and she interviewed a survivor who was about my age. So she was, just a late teen, young mid-teen at the time, and she read her poem, and she lived in my heart, in my mind, everything. She was my protagonist. I modeled my protagonist, Sarah, after her, the strawberry blonde hair. And this poem that she read, just one thing that she said too, when she was interviewed, she said, remembering is sanity. And I never forgot that. And
Wow.
her poem is about, well, anyway, her name is Gail Amberdy. And when I finished the book, I talked to her on the phone, but her poem is starts with, I've forgot nothing. My thoughts are as empty as the vodka bottle on my windowsill. And the poem begins with that, about remembering, but it ends with the horror of that disaster and saying, I can't remember the, dead dogs. I can't remember. And then the last line is, I swear, damn it, I can't forget, not this late at night.
Mm.
So I really wrote it for her, around her. And I just found other characters, if you will, in photo books, photography books with beautiful pictures of the region or people from that region. And the characters would just kind of come alive. And sometimes a character is an amalgama of a bunch of different people, someone I've known in my past, like Linda Lee, a little bit like one of my sisters. So, yeah. And then Frank is a little bit like my father, who was a co-operative. Yeah. And he was a fisherman. He was an outdoorsman. And, and then he and Sarah shared that, the love of fishing and being outside and the birds and the trees and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as you opted to make this book have romance in it. Yeah, but also at one point you wrote, the daughter states, I realize that we don't really know our parents, and maybe our parents don't really know us. And I feel like that was perhaps the crux of the story. So how did you decide? Because your story takes place, between the two timelines, but also over a span of months. So life happens over the span of months. It's not just we meet people and then there's a tragedy, but life happened. So what made you decide, to write it the way you did, to insert the romance, to insert, the daughter going to look for her father?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, I had to join the two worlds, the Cole executive and the local people. Where do you do that? I asked people over and over, where could they meet? Well, they could meet at the general store, or they could meet at this diner restaurant that was still kind of there. So when I got that confirmation, I said, okay, this could happen. And one thing that's kind of interesting, one of my local readers, a very kind woman who's read the manuscript a number of times, it did happen in her family.
Oh,
wow. A sister of hers married a coal executive, but even that, she was not forthcoming. Even 50 years later, it's still a little bit hush hush.
Wow.
Really?
So that really gave me confirmation that could happen, and that's how I would join these two worlds.
Mm-hmm. All right. You did a great job. Yeah.
That's great.
Andrea, what you got?
Well, I tell you, I am just blown away by this being your first novel, because to do what it took for you to put this story in a way that is so engaging and so intriguing, and all those other words that we we can think of, is just it was a joy to read. And I know you had said immediately, we don't want to do a spoiler alert or anything like that. And it's hard because I just, you really want those who've read it will really just want to get in there and talk about it. Well, what about when this happens? So it's kind of, we're trying to restrain ourselves, but we want the audience to know there is a story in this story that is just absolutely amazing, and it is something you will enjoy. If you
Yeah.
are a reader, you will enjoy this story.
Yes.
Isabel has put it together. She has crafted it in an amazing way, and it is something that once you start it, you're not going to want to put it down. So I did want to put that out there, Isabel. I know we had asked you if there was a particular part of the story that you would like to read tonight, and I want to give you space and time to do that. This was it was just I understand. I was going to ask you about the title now, but I do understand
Mhm.
why the title is what it is.
Yeah.
uh, the timing that it took for you to do all of the research and all, and I think that is something that authors and our writers need to remember, that everything isn't going to be a 6 month turnaround or a 3 month turnaround. There are some stories that are, like Isabel was saying, that are in your heart, that you want to write, that you want people to share in, that may take a little time, may take you longer than you anticipate that it would, but stick with it. Hang in there with it, because Isabel did, and we are glad that she did, because it is a work that we thoroughly, thoroughly have enjoyed. But Isabel, what do you want to read to us tonight?
Oh, okay. A very little um, excerpt from the beginning of the book, chapter 5, and it will just give a feel for growing up in a coal hollow.
Mhm.
And it was pronounced coal holler, if you're from
Oh,
Appalachia. Okay. So this is in Sarah's mind. And um, sometimes, though, in the heart of a night, maybe on Christmas or in a bad snowstorm or when there was a strike, a heavy silence would awaken her. Obedience to its summons, she'd go outside. It was as if a vacuum was placed near her ears, sucking any sound away. Her ears quivered for a noise as eyes in a dark room search for light. Other noises were less welcome, like sirens. When they happened, everyone stopped. Cars stopped, shoppers stopped, storekeepers froze in mid sentence. Phones jangled, little groups of people formed out of nowhere. Panic rippled and spread. People running, vehicles speeding toward the number 5, where everyone knew someone. Worry stricken children cringing in their fearful mother's arms. Whispers while waiting. Was it a rock fall, gas explosion, water burst? And the question, like a lightning bolt, shot through the minds of wives, mothers and fathers, sisters, brothers, daughters, and sons. Did I kiss my minor goodbye? The holler huddled. Sometimes it ended in a sigh of relief. Other times, the collective horror of sheet covered bodies. That was why so long ago Sarah had sworn she'd never marry a minor.
mhm. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. I got one. I have one other question for you. We have been talking with different authors about different genres and different stories and books and all of those things. And a lot of times, the book or the story that they start with is not necessarily the story that they end with. There are things along the way and the twists and turns and however you lay that story out that may change. Did you find that for you, or did you feel like you were true to form from beginning to end?
Andrea, that's a bingo question. You got it on the nose, girl. Because, that's what we were talking about too, Ruth, with the two time frames and Alina in the present tense. But so I started out with the present tense and then the flashback. And after a few years and when I got some writers' feedback, and one writer in particular from Los Angeles, I really thought he got what I was doing. He said, you should do away with the present tense. Don't do it. It's too, onerous, and you don't have a good command of it. And I took his advice for a number of years, but that's why this is a 10-year project.
Oh,
And
wow.
to sum up, what I did was I got a hotel room, and I've heard the other writers do that. And a lot of writers go on retreat. But anyway, I got a hotel room really close to my house, but I stayed there, holed up there. And when I came out, I had the two time periods again. So again, that was my initial inspiration. And sometimes you can take someone's advice and you go down that road. But if you don't give up, as Andrea said earlier, if you don't give up, just keep going. That initial idea came back, and I came back. I've never been happier than when I came out of that hotel room. Really, I was ecstatic because it came together, and the advice was good. I had to really kind of keep that present tense pruned and clipped, and keep the focus in the back in the 1970. But yeah. So
it is what you wanted it to be.
Yes,
and that's good.
We're
happy about that. Yeah. Victoria, what did you have for Isabel tonight?
Well, we are absolutely happy that you kept it the way it is. I think the collective of us have totally fallen in love with the story. And, I'm just going to say it right off the bat. Everybody get the book, get the book. There were so many aspects about the stories and how they intertwined, and what impressed me was your chapters are not long at all. But in those chapters, you got a sense of the character, you got a sense of the story, whether it was in the present or the past. You learn so much about the characters, and one of the best stories. It just touched me in a lot of different ways. My father was an alcoholic, so I identified with the mother, Alicia, being an alcoholic, and as a child trying to understand your parents as an adult, what they possibly went through. I mean, that's the story just impressed me so much. And I don't know. My one question is, how did you get all those characters to weave together like that in such a perfect rhythm? I was just blown away, and I could not stop reading. I wanted to know where it was going.
Thank you. A lot of revision. But I think you both, Ruth and Victoria, really sort of honing in on something that I do believe is a strong crux of the book, is the relationship of children to parents, parents to children, and what we know about them and what we don't know about them. It's a real turning point for Sarah. I don't know if you picked up on that, but a real turning point for Sarah, whose mother abandons them, to begin to see life through her mother's shoes, her mother's eyes, put herself in her mother's position. That's when she really kind of grows up and isn't so stuck and afraid of making choices and living her life, because she begins to forgive her mother.
Right. And then the way you did that, I was wondering the entire book, what happened to her mom. And I'm not going to tell that part, but the way you got it in there, like I said, it just was you have a powerful way of writing that in a couple of sentences, I just want to be like you when I finish my book.
Well, what happened to whose mother? What happened to Alina's
Sarah mother? Sarah and Benny's mother. That wasn't explained along. Well, we knew what happened to Alicia. We figure that out, but it wasn't explained until towards the end of the book what happened to Sarah and Benny's and Clay's and all their mom. But I was like, wow, what a story! I couldn't put it down. I really couldn't put it down.
Thank
And
you so much. It's a character-driven story.
right.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I just, everybody else's questions have, and I don't know how to ask any more questions without giving away too much. And well, who was your favorite character? Who did you identify with the most?
Well, my favorite character would be Sarah.
Okay.
Um, I don't know that I feel I'm so much like Sarah. I don't think I was at her age. She was frisky. She was self-confident. She was bonded and really committed to her family, but she also
Right.
wanted to spread her wings. Um, but I think I would say she was my favorite character. I liked Honeycutt. I liked George. And yeah, so I knew someone similar, a little bit similar, but again, you kind of piece together from your brain. A lot of different people can fit together into
Right.
a character. But I did know a Vietnam veteran somewhat well, and some of their stories came into George.
And I like that dynamic. How you threw that in there? How you threw that in there about postpartum depression?
Well, you know what? No, and I noticed too,
That's
you were very accurate with the 70s. It wasn't just okay, let me go get some prophylactic at the groceries, at the CVS. It was,
yeah,
Right.
something particular. It was the vehicles, it was the time, it was what they were doing. You were very accurate, I felt, with that. And I
yeah.
thought that
They
that
didn't
added just to the story.
they
I
didn't
could
know a lot
agree.
about it then.
Yeah.
They didn't know a lot about it. But the other thing to say before we get off is that I'm proud that it's not a good guy, bad guy story.
Right.
Like life, characters are complex.
Yes.
We're a mixture, and there were, a lot of those locals. They denied the risk. They made fun of you. The woman, the whole thing about the woman who wrote the governor was a real woman.
Wow.
She was followed around stores. They made fun of her. She was there was a real woman like
Wow.
that.
And she was so right. She was so right.
Right. So there's, I tried to make complex characters who have life problems on both sides of
Yeah.
the issue. And also, I will say, I'll bring up the Miracle Baby. In Reader's Digest around 2015, they did a expose on Carrie Albright, who survived the Buffalo Creek disaster.
Mm.
He's called the Miracle Baby. It's in Reader's Digest. You could probably find that. And I depict that in my story. Like the whole flood scene, almost every single thing were from survivors' accounts
Stories.
that happened. Really,
Wow.
it did happen, including this baby who was found legs sticking out of the mud and was airlifted. His leg was almost severed, and he lived, and he's flourishing and has a master's degree and lives in New York now. And
Amazing. It's amazing. Well, what is next on tap for you? Are you going to do a sequel, prequel to this book? Because you have some stories in there that I could see could be a whole nother series. What are you working on now?
well, no, this book was a one and done. Although I would love for it to be a movie. And people have
I
asked
can
for
Yes.
it.
see that. I can see
Yeah,
it.
Yes.
I know.
I can see it.
The manuscript that I have now is a little bit is quite personal to me. So it's I can't give everything away, but
Okay.
it's not historical fiction. It's not based on anything that happened. Although I'm doing a little bit of a retelling of of a classic book,
Okay.
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 and putting it in modern time. Mhm.
All
Oh,
Okay.
right.
nice.
Well, can you tell our listeners and our viewers where they can find your book, and of course, also how they can get in touch with you if they want to have some questions or just want to reach out to you more about the book?
I would love that. So the first thing you can do is you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or the publisher belleisle.com, which is a part of Brandy Lane Publishing out of Richmond, Virginia. And and after you read it, you want to get in touch with me, I would love that. And you go to thatyouremember.com.
All Right.
You can look at the various podcasts, a couple of articles I've written, Q&As, and then there's a contact form.
I think I'm going before the night is out.
I would love that. And if you're a writer and you would like some critique or what have you, I have an MFA now, and I can help with editing and giving feedback,
Thank
whether
you.
on a system wide or something really small and specific.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Y'all get the book, get the book, get the book.
Thank you. Wonderful meeting you all, and I so appreciate it, and so glad you liked it.
It was wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Like this is a small word. We love this
Thank you.
this one.
And thank you for having me.
The ones
Of course.
the books that just keep us, engaged, thoroughly engaged, not just in the story of the characters, but the characters themselves and all of the little nuances and all of the little things that could have been forgotten, or that someone else may have looked at and said, "Oh, well, that's not as important as something over here." But you really mastered all of this so well for a first novel.
Thank you.
We're glad that you were willing to share it with us here on Authors Up. We really appreciate your time, Isabel, your story, your journey, and just coming on and telling us about it. Let me ask you one last question. For the writer out there who may be struggling with the critiques, or who may be kind of looking at it from a standpoint and saying, I thought I would have been finished with this by now, and maybe a little discouraged or whatever. What would you say to them tonight?
They say, oh, you could wallpaper your bedroom with rejections. I could wallpaper my house with rejections.
Oh.
You just keep going, and it did feel in the middle there, it felt like swimming across a lake. I'm a swimmer, I don't know, but where you're so far out that you can't go back, but you don't think you can make it all the way, but you can. You just have to keep going. Now, sometimes you might want to take a break. I don't think that's wrong. And my story says I took this person's advice. I kept it in one time period, but it came back, so you just have to keep at it, I guess.
Keep going. Yep, keep going.
I have one more question. How has the reception that you have had, what feedback have you had from the book?
Well, I have had great feedback. You can look at a Kirkus review, Book-like review. There's an article, Books by Women. There's a Q&A. I have a number of podcasts and Midwest Book Review. Two of my highest feedback came from a professor at West Virginia University, Jeff Skousen. He told me when I asked him if he would like to receive a complimentary copy. He said, and I want to tell you, Isabel, I'm pro-industry, because he's a professor of soil and reclamation science. He goes into mines. I said, okay. I want your opinion. I want this to hold water.
Right.
He wrote me a wonderful review. And then Aaron Parsons, director of the West Virginia Archives, Cultural Archives, grew up in Buffalo Creek Hollow.
Wow.
And I don't know if we have time, but he also wrote me a great review. He said the people felt like people I know. Reading of their suffering was a reminder of what the people of my home community endured. Wow. So those were really high, really felt really good to me that, and that it reaches across the spectrum, whether you're pro-industry or you grew up there or you just want to know about American history. This is history, So.
Yes.
Thank you.
Could not have been better feedback for you. This really, and that really does capture what it is about, how well it is written, the storyline and everything. That You Remember is the name of this work by Isabel Reddy. And we really do mean, you got to get this one, guys. Don't
Yes.
mess around. You better do what Queen Victoria instructs her subjects to do. Get the book. Get the
Get
book.
the book.
And Ruth, you have final words for us.
Absolutely, yes. So, Isabel, thank you again. We are so happy that you were able to join us on the show. Um, for our viewers and listeners, follow us on social media. We are on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube. Just have to search for Authors Up Show. You will find us. Please like, please subscribe, please follow us. You can catch a replay of this show on Facebook at Saturday, this coming Saturday at 7 p.m. The show will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel and podcast midweek. So take us with you wherever you go. If you have any questions about the show, about becoming a guest on the show, please email us at authorsup@gmail.com.
That's it,
Okay.
and that's all. That's it. As they say, that's it. That's the post. That's it. That's the
That's
program.
it.
Thank
Mic
you,
drop.
ladies.
That's it. Drop the mic. Well, thank you, everybody, for being with us tonight. Thank you, Isabel. We wish you much success with this book and whatever project you put your hands to. You are a wonderful writer and a great storyteller. And again, thank you so much. And we invite you all to come back next week. We hope you have a wonderful week. But look, next Sunday, we're going to be right here at 7 p.m. We're going to have another edition of Authors Up. And I tell you what, I'm not even going to try to begin to tell you what it's going to be about, because we tell you every week, you never,
Never
ever,
know.
ever know what's going to happen when you join us here on Authors Up. So have a wonderful week, everybody, and prayerfully we will see you next week at 7 p.m. for another edition of Authors Up. Good night,
Right on,
everybody.
girls.
Good night, Isabel.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.